My name is Odessa Rourke, and the last time I let my sister near a cup of coffee, I ended up with second-degree burns, right in the middle of a company luncheon. She spilled it on my lap, looked me in the eye, and smiled like it was just an accident. People laughed, some turned away. No one said a word. But what they didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment for months, and they certainly didn't expect what happened next, when my husband, Dorian Eastwell, walked into the boardroom in a tailored suit and a colder stare than I'd ever seen, and within 10 minutes, fired every single person seated at that table. But this story isn't about revenge. Not exactly. It's about being erased piece by piece and deciding one day that silence wasn't safety anymore. That being the quiet one didn't mean I was blind or weak or waiting to be rescued. It meant I was watching and recording and waiting for the moment to act with precision. So if you've ever sat in a room full of people and still felt invisible, let me tell you how I burned down the illusion they built around me, one carefully documented lie at a time. Most mornings at Rourke Analytics started the same way for me, walking in before the sun fully cleared the skyline, clutching 2 coffees I didn't drink, and a bag of breakfast wraps no one ever thanked me for. The building smelled like polished concrete and old ambition. You'd think that being the co-founder's sister might have earned me a nod, maybe a moment of recognition. But here, I was just Odessa, the one who knew where the backup batteries were stored, the one who stayed late when the interns forgot to file reports, the one who wrote the predictive model the sales team now took full credit for, quietly, efficiently, and invisibly. I had an MBA from Wharton, built 2 behavioral segmentation tools before I turned 30, but Marla, my older sister, was the face of the company, the voice in interviews, the name on every plaque in the lobby. And if she noticed that the company's innovation engine was sitting in a back cubicle next to the supply closet, she never mentioned it. They didn't ignore me out of malice. That would have meant they had to acknowledge I existed. No, their cruelty was subtler than that. I was helpful, flexible, easy to overlook. And they liked it that way. One morning, I walked past a group of interns whispering in a corner. They stiffened when they saw me, the kind of tension people have when they've just sent a message they hope you won't see. I didn't need to check my inbox. I already knew. A few days earlier, I had found a meme circulating on Slack, a photo of me cleaning the whiteboard in conference room B, captioned, "When nepotism comes with a mop." I didn't cry. I didn't even bring it up. I saved the file in a folder on my encrypted drive labeled internal. Just that. No drama, no retaliation, not yet. That afternoon, during the monthly alignment meeting, I sat at the edge of the room while Blythe Carr, one of Marla's fast-tracked protégés, stood in front of the entire department and presented my model. Same graphs, same projections, even the same wording. No mention of where it came from. Marla clapped first. "Brilliant," she said, beaming like a proud mentor. "This is exactly what I meant when I said we need fresh eyes." Fresh eyes. I had built that model over 3 months, testing every assumption twice. Blythe didn't even know what a data lag coefficient was until I explained it to her. But that didn't matter. What mattered was who said it loudest, who smiled widest, who looked good doing it. That night, I stayed behind after everyone left. The building echoed in its emptiness. I walked over to the printer, pulled out a copy of the presentation Blythe had submitted to the executive board, and compared it to my original file. The metadata confirmed it. Time-stamped, matched line for line, my initials on every slide. I placed both documents into a clear folder, labeled it with a single word, proof. Then I filed it away. Because sometimes the loudest action is preparation. By the end of that week, I'd collected 4 more instances. One email where someone from design referred to me as good for filling diversity metrics. Another, a thread forwarded from the marketing lead, joking about naming the office mop after me. A Slack message from a junior manager. She still thinks she's in line for VP. Cute. And one from Blythe herself. If Odessa had any bite, she'd have used it by now. She's safe. Safe. That word echoed louder than the others. I'd built my reputation on being steady, adaptable, non-confrontational. It had worked for a while. Until it didn't. Marla and I hadn't been close since our 20s, but she used to pretend in public. Lately, even that veneer had thinned. She no longer introduced me in meetings, even when clients asked directly. She'd smile and say, "Oh, Odessa supports operations." That was it, just support, like scaffolding in a building everyone admires but never credits. On a Thursday evening, long after most of the office had cleared out, I was dropping off hard copies of updated projections in her office. Her door was slightly ajar. I paused, hearing voices, hers and my mother's. "She needs to go," my mother said, voice sharp, polished. "People are starting to notice." "She won't leave," Marla replied, her tone clipped. "That's the problem. She's too useful, too close. You know how this works, Mom. Keep her in the room, but far from the table." "She doesn't fight. She never has." They didn't know I was standing there. But I didn't flinch. I didn't knock or walk in. I simply stepped back, placed the folder gently on the side table, and walked away without a sound. Back at my desk, I opened a new audio memo, uploaded the recording from my phone, tucked in my coat pocket, and saved it under a new tag, Phase 2. The next morning, the company held a culture recognition event in the atrium. Bagels, streamers, a looping slideshow with smiling employee headshots and meaningless phrases like, "elevated our mission." When it came time for the Data Innovation Award, I already knew what was coming. Blythe's name lit up the screen. Not a footnote, not a shared mention, not a based on the work of... Just her, standing on stage, smiling wide in my heels. Marla presented the award herself. "This is the kind of brilliance we want to nurture," she said, looking straight at the crowd and never once in my direction. The applause was sharp, performative. I watched the photo on the screen. Blythe holding my dataset, my algorithm, my future, wearing it like a borrowed coat she didn't understand, but loved the attention it brought. I didn't clap. I didn't move. Later that evening, I returned to my office to find a folder placed neatly on my chair. No name, no note. Inside was a full-color printout of the presentation Blythe had just received recognition for. My layout, my data, my annotations removed, replaced with her watermark on every slide. I checked the printer log, printed 2 hours before the event. So I did what I always did. I documented it, scanned every page, sent it to myself, archived it twice, once on an encrypted cloud, once on an external drive at home. Because they thought I was safe. But I wasn't passive. I was deliberate. And sometimes survival looks a lot like surrender, right before the pivot. Investor Day at Rourke Analytics wasn't just an event. It was a performance. Everything from the scent in the lobby to the shade of the napkins was curated to perfection. Marla lived for it. She was magnetic in these rooms, all poised gestures and choreographed charm. I arrived early, expecting the usual, being kept out of sight, handed a logistical role, thanked only when someone needed an extra badge printed or coffee replenished. Sure enough, I found my name card removed from the analyst seating chart and quietly reassigned to the hospitality table. Blythe claimed it was a clerical mix-up. I didn't argue. I waited until she left, and I moved my name back to where it belonged, not for recognition, but for record. By noon, the guests were filtering in. I stood near the tall windows, away from the center of attention, my hands still tingling from the previous day's edits. The air in the room was stiff with tension, dressed up as optimism. I was pouring myself a second cup of coffee when Marla entered. She moved like someone who believed the room already belonged to her, confident, radiant, and calculating. She held 2 lattes, smiled graciously at a senior partner, and then made her way directly toward me. For a second, I almost believed she'd simply walk by. But she didn't. Her wrist turned just slightly, subtle enough to feign clumsiness, deliberate enough to be unmistakable, and hot liquid burst out of the cup, striking me across the lap. It soaked through my slacks instantly, scalding skin before my brain could register the pain. Gasps rippled. Someone snorted. A few chuckled softly, unsure whether to respond. Marla's voice rose with theatrical concern. "Odessa! Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Still your favorite, right?" Her words tasted like a challenge. I met her gaze and held it. I didn't flinch. I didn't curse. I didn't cry. I simply nodded once, turned slowly, and walked out of the room with burning thighs and soaked pride. But not shame. Not anymore. In the restroom, I shut the stall door and braced myself against the cold metal wall, letting the steam of pain and clarity fill the silence. I changed into the backup leggings I kept hidden in my locker. My hands trembled as I cleaned the burn with damp paper towels. But even then, even shaking, I knew I wasn't unraveling. I was crystallizing. Back at my desk, my inbox pinged with a company-wide email. The subject line read, "Congratulations, Blythe Carr." I opened it and read the announcement slowly. Blythe had been appointed Director of Data Strategy, a role I had invented, a department I had built from zero. The structure, the projections, the proposed roadmap, all mine, now introduced under her name. The email closed with a quote from Marla praising young leaders who carry the torch forward. That's when I felt it, like a stone dropping into water. Not grief, not rage, just resolve. I unlocked the folder I'd been building for months, the one no one knew existed. I added one more file to it that night. The security camera footage near the investor lounge, where Marla's spill had been caught from a perfect angle. Her trajectory, her eyes, her smile, 1 second too early. I included a copy of the project drafts, the ones with my notes, my margin edits, Blythe's handwriting over my structure. All of it quietly, methodically stored and encrypted. And then I opened my notebook, the one I only used when it mattered, and wrote what I knew to be true. They gave me coffee. I'd give them fire. The office felt unusually still that morning. Not calm, but tight with something unspoken. I arrived early, not to disappear, but to prepare. At my desk, I opened the folder labeled Phase 3, double-checked the email I'd sent the night before, and saw the confirmation. Delivered. No body text, no greeting, just attachments, just truth. The quarterly strategy meeting began mid-morning. I wasn't listed on the agenda. No chair was marked for me. But I sat down anyway, far from the screen, but close enough to see what they were trying to take. Blythe opened the session with a polished smile and began explaining her model, my model. Every chart, every predictive line, every flow of logic came straight from the drafts I had spent nights building. The only thing that was hers was the voice presenting it. Marla watched from the side, arms folded, face fixed in that quiet expression of authority. Not once did she look at me. No one did. I didn't interrupt. I didn't make a scene. I sat there and let it play, absorbing each lie like oxygen I no longer needed. Afterward, when the room emptied, I returned to my desk. A new message blinked on my screen. It was automated. "Thanks for supporting today's presentation, Odessa. Great note-taking." No name, no signature. Just erasure, packaged as appreciation. I opened my archive. Every draft of the project sat there. Annotated, time-stamped, undeniable. I uploaded the entire folder to a secure cloud server under my control, locked behind 3 layers of encryption. That night, I walked until my feet ached. I passed storefronts glowing with warmth I didn't feel, drifted past familiar buildings like a ghost. When I got home, I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat at the kitchen table, coat still on, hands wrapped around a cooling cup of tea. I remembered a line Dorian once told me. Being right quietly is the most dangerous thing in the world, because no one sees it coming. I opened my laptop, found the email of the legal advisor he once trusted, attached the file, and typed 2 words in the subject line: internal evidence. I didn't feel fear or fire, just clarity. It was no longer about getting credit or making noise. It was about making it undeniable. And if they wanted silence, they were about to hear it fall apart. The morning it all changed didn't announce itself. No whispers, no emails, just the usual buzz of monitors and coffee makers. I was reviewing call summaries when the elevator dinged. 3 men stepped out. 2 wore dark suits, scanning the room with practiced efficiency. The third walked slower, with intention. Dorian. But this wasn't the version of him anyone here had seen. No casual smile, no relaxed posture. Just a tailored black suit, a calm gaze, and silence that made the office still around him. Marla emerged from her office, smile ready. "Dorian," she said too brightly, "what a surprise." He cut her off. "Let's make this quick." The boardroom doors opened like it had been rehearsed. Inside, Lucian from legal took a seat. Marla settled at the head. I remained standing, behind them all. Dorian placed 2 folders on the table, one in front of Marla, the other in front of Lucian. "Transfer of controlling interest," he said. "Effective immediately. Monroe Analytics is now under Wexler Holdings." Marla blinked. "You can't be serious." "I'm very serious," he replied. "What's been happening here isn't just unethical, it's corrosive." "You're doing this to punish me?" Her voice rose. "Because I stood up for this company?" "No, I'm doing this because you curated a lie and erased the people who built your success." He turned to me. I walked forward, pulled a USB from my pocket, and connected it to the projector. No one stopped me. First, security footage. Marla's hand releasing the coffee with unmistakable intent. Second, internal emails mocking me, reducing my role to a joke. Third, side-by-side comparisons of my model and the one Blythe presented, stripped of my name. Fourth, annotated documents with my handwriting and tracked changes. And finally, one slide with a single sentence. "If silence protects the abuser, let noise redeem the truth." Blythe lowered her head. Lucian looked at Marla. "Do you have anything to say for yourself?" She straightened. "This is a hit job." "No," I said. "It's a correction." Dorian stood. "Effective immediately, Marla Rourke is removed from her role. A formal audit begins today. Your contract is terminated, pending legal review." Marla looked toward our mother seated near the wall. She didn't speak. She didn't move. She stared straight ahead, detached. As the room emptied, I waited. When it was just us, I walked to the projector, removed the USB, and turned to the window. "You once said I was too soft to survive," I said quietly. "Turns out I was just quiet enough to outlast it." There was no reply. I didn't need one. The Monday after everything changed, the office looked the same, but the atmosphere had shifted. The air was clearer, lighter, the kind of silence that no longer meant danger, but recovery. Marla's nameplate was gone. Her corner office stood empty, the door freshly painted over. Blythe's resignation arrived late Sunday night. Short, polite, something about new directions. I didn't reply. She didn't expect me to. At the front desk, a new framed quote hung beside the mission statement. It read, "Silence gave me strength. Truth gave me my voice." Beneath it, my name. Clean, simple, quiet power. I didn't stop to admire it. I just walked past and kept going. In my office, Lucian and our new HR lead joined me to finalize the company's first real code of ethics. We documented protections for whistleblowers, clear authorship guidelines, rules for attribution, accountability, transparency. The kinds of rules we all used to pretend weren't needed. But they were. And now, they existed. Lucian signed and handed me the pen. "This wouldn't have happened without you," I signed next. "It shouldn't have needed me," I said. "But it starts now." Later that week, a short message pinged into my inbox. Subject, "I owe you an apology." From Blythe. She didn't defend herself. She admitted what she'd allowed, what she chose not to stop. Said silence felt easier than standing alone. Said she regretted that now. I didn't respond, but I saved the message. A few days later, my mother appeared without warning. She didn't ask for a tour or mention Marla. She simply stood at the glass wall in my office and looked out over the city. "I came to see it," she said. "The place that changed everything." I poured her tea, no milk, no sugar. Just how she always took it. She looked around once, then at me. "You run this now." I held her gaze. "I lead it." She nodded. "It feels different. It feels fair." We didn't revisit the past. No apologies. No excuses. As she turned to leave, she paused in the doorway. You never needed fixing, she said. Just space. That night, I shut down my laptop after signing off on a new initiative: Leadership Scholarships for Women of Color in Data and Behavioral Science. The first 4 recipients had already been selected. Quiet, brilliant, overlooked for far too long. No speeches, no spotlight, just a stillness that finally felt like mine. People called it revenge. It wasn't. I never needed them to fall. I just needed space to rise.